Ow! Dang it! Oh no. Come on in. Because now it's time to learn, to cook, to taste.
Hello and welcome to Taste, the cooking podcast where every episode dives deep into a different food. I'm your host, Cody Reiss, and today's episode is about scallion pancakes, featuring our guest Eric Z, chef and co-owner of 886 and Wenwen in New York City. Not long ago, before I talked to Eric, my friend Jacob and I tried to make scallion pancakes at home without using a recipe, and it went...
Tastes like a roti?
Yeah, it does taste like a roti, which I don't think is the goal exactly.
Totally okay, but we ran into a bunch of different questions. How long should we rest the dough? How thin should we roll it? How much fat should we use? How hot should we cook it? Some pancakes turned out thin and crispy like a cracker, while others turned out a bit chewier, but we weren't totally sure what they were supposed to look like, let alone how the different steps influence the final outcome. That's why I was so excited to talk to Eric, because he's just so smart and thoughtful about food, and as expected, he was able to walk me through each little consideration and component of scallion pancakes. I learned so much, and I'm so excited to make another batch using his guidance. I guess in all likelihood, most of you out there probably haven't tried to make scallion pancakes at home, and if you haven't, I hope our conversation inspires you to give it a try, and if you have, I hope it gives you some helpful tools. Anyhow, without further ado, here's my conversation with Eric.
Where do we even want to start?
I
right?
know where we want to start. What is your relationship with scallion pancakes?
I mean, anybody who grows up in Asia, East Asia especially, you sort of see scallion pancakes around everywhere in all its different shapes and forms. And now it's kind of taken over the West via the frozen, super thin Trader Joe's and other brand, et cetera, et cetera. It's really taken over sort of every Chinese restaurant. There really is no sort of limitation to what it can and should be. It could be a sort of like a rice substitute on a dinner table. It could be a breakfast sort of quasi burrito roll with a bunch of stuff inside. You see it pan fried, you see it deep fried, you see it shallow fried, you see it fried then sort of like steamed, sort of like a senjianbao technique. Honestly, there's just so many types of scallion pancakes. And it's kind of limitless. Yeah.
Do you remember like the first time you tried to make it and how that went?
I actually vividly remember we were still in Taipei. My parents were like, hey, let's make scallion pancakes. So it was a family event. And I remember very, very specifically how my parents were shocked at how much oil goes into it. But scallion pancake in Mandarin is 葱油饼. 葱 is scallion, or actually in the greater Chinese languages, 葱 would be essentially the same sort of root noun of like an onion. You know how we use onion to describe a purple onion, like a yellow onion, right, or a white onion. Kinda. Yeah, or a green onion, right? Mm-hmm. So the sort of family of alliums, that is the scallion in all of Chinese cookery. So Yangcong means, lack of a better term, foreign scallion. In Mandarin, it's 葱油饼, so scallion, oil, yo is oil, just fat. And bing is sort of like a pancake / biscuit, however you want to call it. Bing is like shaobing and all these things. It's a flour-based dough that you either leaven it or you don't, or you bake it, you fry it, but the dough itself is called a bing. Yeah.
Describe your ideal scallion pancake.
For me, my perfect scallion pancakes that I love, and the one we serve at 886 is it's crusted with sesame seeds. It's way breadier. It's not as crispy, but it's very fragrant. It's extraordinarily fragrant. We have a special spice blend that we sort of dust onto the pancakes before we roll them. We season the pancakes with your base, salt, sugar, MSG, but also Sichuan pepper, star anise, the 5 spice, but more. So that also is a deciding factor. But I kind of think the super crispy scallion pancakes are a bit overrated because everybody loves them and everybody thinks, oh, it's got to be crispy. Our biggest complaint is always, oh, they're scallion pancakes. It's not even crispy. Well, it's not supposed to be crispy. It can have character in terms of texture. It's not everything needs to be crispy. Yeah, ours has a little bit of a sourdough starter in it, which is it's fun because it provides structure. It provides sort of like textural integrity that you wouldn't get if you didn't have that like a tiny bit of yeast. I mean, the sourdough flavor is for me an afterthought. It's more of incorporating a very, very, very tiny amount of yeast that keeps the scallion pancakes sort of keeps them tall. It sounds really weird, but that was my like original thought. I want to keep them tall. But I still want the layers to separate. So we only proof them overnight, and then we freeze them immediately, so they don't overproof. And then we thaw them the day of service, and we don't let them sit in the refrigerator for overnight. So it doesn't overproof essentially. Because
you freeze them as final pancakes, or you freeze them as...
No, we freeze them as dough balls.
Dough balls, cool.
So we roll them, put them into plastic bags, and then freeze them, and then we thaw them. And then how we serve it at the restaurant is to order, we put it on a plancha and we smash them like smash burgers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
cool.
it's fun. We dust it with sesame first, and then we smash them.
Huh.
That's how I like it. But then, there's nothing wrong with crispy scallion pancakes, Like the Trader Joe's frozen Taiwanese green onion pancake, it's made very well. They don't make it themselves. The company that white labels it for them does a very good job. And the bar for that is very high. And which is why it's hard to serve handmade scallion pancakes in restaurants, especially in New York. It's like, yeah, you can go through 5 hours of labor every single week just to make a scallion pancakes that you'll sell for like $8. And people will complain that it's very expensive, but you have to because all this work has gone into it. Or you can go to the supermarket and buy a pack for $8 and sell them at $6 each. Right. And it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly good.
Yeah.
Some people even might prefer it. So in terms of restaurant economics, it's pretty moronic to make your own scallion pancakes.
Good. Okay, I'll remember that. Walk me through the like basic universal ingredients of a scallion pancake.
Okay, it's flour, water, fat, and scallions, and salt, obviously.
Cool.
Some places don't add salt because it depends on where your end goal is for your scallion pancake. Some places design their scallion pancakes to be really thin, really large, so that it can be kind of folded up into almost like a burrito. Some places you eat the scallion pancakes by itself, sans any sauce. So then you have to make sure the dough is really well seasoned. And obviously salt content also affects the sort of pliability and flexibility of your dough. And that being said, it's flour, water, salt, scallions, and fat. 5 key ingredients. And with each ingredient, you have variations, right? Just simply put, you have a combination of either all-purpose flour and bread flour, or all-purpose flour with a little bit of cake flour, or you just use only all-purpose flour. It's the blend of flour, right, that kind of dictates how much protein you have in your dough. How much protein, how much elasticity, how much Q-ness, right? How much Q or like texture you achieve at the end product.
Just a quick note for anyone that hasn't heard the term Q before, which I hadn't, that refers to like a chewy, kind of bouncy texture.
Some people like it doughier and chewier. Some people like it just crispy and flaky and fall apart tender.
So like if I want a flaky one, which pathway would I go down? Or if I want like a chewy, kind of denser one, which pathway would I go down?
It's not all about the flour, right? But if you want a flaky one, I would go the all-purpose and cake direction. If you want a chewier one, which is more akin to a bread, right? So you would go the all-purpose and bread flour route.
Right.
If you want a very middle of the road, kind of best of both worlds, but neither, then you get the all-purpose one. That's a cop-out move. But
so what kind of proportions are we talking here? Let's say I want to go to Flake Town and I'm doing all-purpose and cake. What's the ratio of all-purpose to cake basically in that?
It would be 70% all-purpose and 30% cake. That's what I would go with.
Cool.
And then the other way would be 70% all-purpose, 30% bread.
Okay, great. So I get those as the pathways. You were about to say that another important thing is water. So please.
Yeah, I think pretty universally, I don't want to speak for everybody, but through all the recipes that I've done, that I've tasted/tested, scallion pancakes generally benefit from a higher hydration dough, right? When you think some people make noodles with 30% hydration, you can't even you can't even make it by hand. You need a machine to sort of press it together. I land on about like a 60% hydration for the scallion pancakes, which means, baker's scale. So 100 grams of flour is 60 grams of water. If you use 60% hydration, it's not going to be too bad. However, the temperature of the water also matters. So there's this thing called tang mian, which it just means like scalding dough, which means you put scalding water, which is boiling water, into your flour. What that does is it kind of breaks down and gelatinizes some of the protein in the flour so that you're not getting as much gluten. You make it a little bit dead. So it's easier to manipulate. And what that does is that sort of technique yields the flakiness that people are looking for. And that being said, you can't exactly use. Oh, you can. There are a lot of recipes that just call for 100% scalding water. But for me, I like a little bit more texture, because once you put 100% scalding water in, you have sort of done yourself, in my opinion. Again, I have to keep stressing in my opinion, because there's so many ways of doing scallion pancake, and everybody likes their own way. If you put 100% scalding water, what you attain is an incredibly flaky and a lot of different layers, and it crisps up really nicely, but you don't have that chew, right? Which is why I personally never make scallion pancake with any cake flour. I always go the all-purpose and protein flour and bread flour route. But I do apply a little bit of the hot water technique. I use 30% hot water, 70% cold water. Just so I make the dough a little bit more pliable, but I'm still retaining a lot of the glutens that, the bread flour was giving me. But I still get the layers, and I still get a little bit of flake.
Do you add the hot water first, or it doesn't matter?
Hot water first.
Hot water first, okay.
Yeah.
We've talked about flour. We've talked about water. You mentioned earlier that salt has an impact on the malleability of the dough, I think is what I heard.
Yeah. I tend to stick to a 3% salt. I read it somewhere. I read this study on noodles where they tested a bunch of different salt levels and how it affects the sort of malleability of hand stretched noodles. And 3% is the sort of the sweet spot. Obviously, there are a lot of variabilities on which salt you use, but at the restaurant we use Morton's. It's just what we started with, so we stuck with it. All of our measurements are Morton's. And 3% works for us, and also season it really well. We also add about 1% of MSG and 3% sugar. That just seasons it a little bit, right? It gives it that base fundamental flavor.
Is when you're saying these percentages, is that percentage of the flour?
All baker scales, percentage from flour. It just makes it so much simpler.
That is the dough. Now, talk to me about once you have your dough, the other ingredients that come into play, like scallions or...
So you have your scallions, which, honestly, it's very simple. You can put anything that has a decent water content in it. You can put chives, you can put leeks, you can put ramps, you can put garlic, whatever you like, right? It just needs to have a decent amount of water concentration so that it doesn't burn while you're searing it, because it's got to deal with very, very high heat. And then there's the fat, right? The fat, some people use sesame oil, some people use a roux, and some people use, other saturated / animal fats. The fat is supposed to, quote unquote, act as sort of the laminating agent to separate the layers, right? But technically, there are two things that separate layers. There's the fat, yes, and there's the scallions. They're the scallions themselves. And the key is water, right? If you imagine an unyeasted croissant, when you bake it at a high temperature, the water from the butter would turn into steam, and it will push up each layer of the laminated dough. Kind of like an egg tart crust, something like that. But in terms of scallion pancake, it's the same technique. It's just we don't use butter, right? We use if it's a roux, then it's sort of like a neutral oil, and then you cook it with a little bit of flour. and that sort of acts as a separating agent because it's not exactly homogeneous as flour, and it doesn't stick, so it just kind of separates. Sesame oil is always been it's always been kind of a tricky one for me because it imparts flavor, but I don't know if there's a lot of water in it. But again, if you have scallions that has a lot of water, then the water begins to evaporate, turns into steam, and it pushes up every single layer, and then you get your separation. My personal favorite is lard. I've tried so many different fats. I've tried duck fat. I've tried beef tallow. I've tried using beef tallow, and I made a beef tallow vodka roux just to sort of impart a little more water content because tallow doesn't have water, right? A good way to think about it is like, okay, duck fat makes sense because duck fat, when you put it in the refrigerator, it's still scoopable, kind of like an ice cream.
Right.
So is lard. But beef fat, it turns into a brick of like a candle.
Right. And that's because of the water content.
Exactly. That's because of the water content. So what you want, the fat that you want is the fat that contains a lot of water content. So technically, yeah, I've also made it with butter. Butter makes sense. It just tastes completely different. Yeah, you can use goose fat. You can use all sorts of fat. And at the restaurant, we render our own lard with a bunch of like scallion trim, onion trim, ginger, and a bunch of spices. So that goes into our scallion pancake.
Wow.
And it allows for the layering that we achieve, as well as a copious amount of scallion. Yeah.
Let's say someone doesn't eat pork. What's a comparable fat that like it accomplishes a similar thing, like Crisco, like vegetable shortening, or like
you can use Crisco is very widely used in scallion pancakes. I just think it's so sus. I'm not a big Crisco guy.
Sure, yeah, definitely.
The amount of trans fat is gonna,
right.
Not like anything else is much better, but if we can stay a little bit natural, I try to do it. Chicken fat, great. But vegetarian, I would say I would go with roux, honestly.
A roux.
Just a vegetable oil, something neutral, a 1-to-1 fat and flour ratio, and then you use it as if it's a layer of lard.
And you want to cook that, because like when I was looking at these pastes, maybe I misread the recipe, but I feel like they just wanted you to mix the flour with the fat, but not cook it.
I toast the flours first because it gives it a little bit more depth of flavor. Yeah, because once you're cooking the scallion pancake, there's so much water inside the dough that when the dough is evaporating, you're never gonna get that sort of caramelization. You're never gonna get that extra layer of flavor. So toast your flour, incorporate the oil, and mix.
It doesn't have to, but you're not like cooking it like if you're making like a blonde roux for like a bechamel or something like that.
Oh, no, you don't have to, no.
Okay, cool. Amazing. That seems like it might be most of the ingredients that we're dealing with. Is that true? I think so.
Yeah, I mean, how they do it in Taiwan is the scallion is also seasoned. So you salt your scallions, so you draw out excess moisture. You're still going to have enough for your separation, but you're concentrating the flavor of the scallions. Kind of like how you're supposed to salt your steak a couple hours beforehand.
Right, yeah, or like salt cucumbers or eggplant or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's also a technique people use. I haven't started using it because logistically it's a fucking nightmare. But yeah, people salt it and then they weigh it. Some people saute their scallions first. That also might work.
For scallions, like, do you just want like as much scallion as will fit in there, or is there like a
no?
Do you want no? Okay.
Yeah, you definitely want to portion your scallions. You want to ration it a little bit because there is something as too much scallion. If there's too much scallion, there's too much water. And it's going to be weighing down your dough, and it's going to sort of rehydrate. It's going to overhydrate the inside of your dough, and it's going to be very dense, and it's not going to be desirable. What you want is sort of a perfect amount where it's nice scallion flavor, but it's not so much that it overpowers in terms of giving your dough too much water, and it becomes like a wet dough ball in the middle.
So you might get like a couple scallions in a bite.
Yeah. It's never meant to be like an entire like mouthful of scallions with each bite. It's still a pancake at the end of the day. Yeah.
Today's episode of To Taste is brought to you by Ritalin. Ritalin. Sometimes it helps, and sometimes it doesn't. Nah, I'm just joking. To Taste is actually somehow still looking for sponsors, so Yeah, that would if you do wanna. Let's get back to our conversation.
Walk me through the beat by beat of the process from the moment you walk into the kitchen to the moment that the scallion pancake touches your lips.
Got it. So you have your bowl of flour that's 70% all-purpose, 30% bread.
Mm.
You have your salt, sugar, MSG already mixed into it.
Mm.
You whisked it, you incorporated it all even, and then you have your hot water that's scalding. Only 30% of the total water you'll be using.
When you say scalding, like, let's say I'm using a tea kettle, like it whistles and I'm going directly in.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. You tear your bowl, you put your flour in. Let's say you have 100 grams of flour, right? Let's just for ease. And then you tear it. Right now, for the amount of water, you're looking for 60 grams, right? And 30% of the 60 grams is supposed to be scalding water.
Mm.
So like 20-ish grams.
Mm.
So you pour that in, and then you quickly mix it with chopsticks or a spatula, whatever, just so you cool down the flour.
Are you pouring it in all at once, or are you slowly dribbling?
All
and
at
mixing?
once.
All at once. Okay.
And then you add in your regular water, your like tap water, which is like 40-ish grams. Well, 30-ish grams.
Mm.
And then you knead it. Well, depending if you want to use sourdough starter. If you want to use sourdough starter, I use a 1-to-1 hydration, like 100% hydration sourdough starter. And I only add in, I forget my recipe. It's like 3% of the total weight of flour. So very little, very, very little.
And are you decreasing the water to adjust to that, or is it small enough that it doesn't really matter?
No.
Okay.
It's small enough.
Cool.
And then you mix, and you let it rest.
Is there what texture are you looking at as you mix it in? And are you afraid of overmixing, undermixing?
You can't really you can certainly overmix this one, but then you're going to be mixing it by hand, and it's going to be so sticky. It's kind of gross, but you just got to trust the process. The moment the dough begins to not stick to your fingers as much and not stick to the bowl as much, then you let it rest. Right? You're not looking for a crazy smooth surface. You don't have to. Once it stops sticking, then you let it rest. This stage, I would let it rest maybe like 30 minutes.
Cool.
Covered, yes. You don't really need to use a wet rag because it's so hydrated. But definitely cover it. And after 30 minutes, you take it out. At this point, you have 160 some, maybe close to 170 grams, right? That should yield like a very healthy pancake, one very healthy pancake. You take it, you roll it out into different techniques, but the most traditional technique is to roll it out into a circle. You roll out, you flatten it first, and you roll it out into a big circle.
And are you oiling the dough before you roll it? Are you doing anything to the rolling pin? How do you roll? Like, what's your technique there?
Right now, you're not using anything. You don't need to flour your rolling pin. You don't need to oil your rolling pin. You don't need to do anything. The dough itself should be pliable. It should be flexible, and it should be sort of like, it'll fight back a tiny bit, but not too much. And it shouldn't be sticking to your rolling pin too much either.
If it's fighting back, did you not rest it enough? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, if it's fighting back, rest it longer. Rest
Cool.
it for another 30 minutes or so.
And if it's sticking, what would you do?
Also resting.
Cool.
Yeah. If it's sticking way too much, then it might be something off with the hydration level. Then you can dust it with a little bit of flour.
Cool.
But it shouldn't be. If it's sticking too much, that means there's too much water.
Cool.
You roll it out, and then at this point, you should have your either roux, sesame oil, whatever fat ready.
Okay, wait. I want to stop and zoom in a little bit on rolling, because this was something I had a lot of trouble with. How do you think about rolling out this dough?
Oh, I roll it out. I flip the dough. I roll it out again. I flip it 45 degrees, and then I roll it out again, and then another 45 degrees, and then roll it out again.
And is that
Yeah.
and then is that it? Like, is it like 4 rolls and you're done at home, or is it like?
It depends on how much strength you have and how lucky you are.
Right.
Like, honestly, how lucky you are. But then I honestly wouldn't stress about the rolling part. The rolling part is it does not affect your end result as much as people think.
Cool.
It really does not.
Great.
And so you roll it out. You want it thin, but not too thin. You don't want it so thin that you can see your fingers behind it. Okay. You want it just thick enough so that you can easily manipulate it without it ripping. Because once it starts ripping, it's too thin, and then you have like a scallion leakage situation. It's not the end of the world, but we prefer it a little bit thicker.
Cool.
Thicker than, paper thin.
Right. Okay. So then you said you've got your lard or your roux standing by.
Yeah. Yeah, let's just say lard for my purposes.
Cool.
You take the lard, you lather a very generous layer onto it, making sure every single crevice has that lard.
How much lard?
The thing here is you can't exactly over lard it. You would have to use an obscene amount of lard to be over larding it. Like, just use your common sense.
Yeah.
I feel like anybody who's ever stepped into a kitchen will have enough common sense to lard this pancake appropriately.
Generously, yeah. Okay, cool. Got
Yes, generously, because think about it. When you're rolling it later, it's gonna fall out if it's too much, and when you're searing it, the excess is kind of gonna render out, quote unquote. But the dough is gonna take in a little bit of it, but it's not gonna be able to take in that much.
Cool.
And so, one even layer of lard. And then you have your seasoning powder, which ours is like a bunch of spices. You can also just use white pepper and black pepper. You can use cayenne, you can use whatever. That's like a lot of flexibility there.
But you could use 5 spice?
You can use 5 spice.
Yeah.
I would add white pepper to 5 spice. You want that peppery note, right? Because it is a lot of fat, so you want something to sort of stand up to the greasiness. You do a nice, a very gentle layer, not too generous because you don't want it to overpower. And then you do a small, even layer of scallions. Not too much, but not too little.
And scallions, like, are we talking like fine dining thin, or are we talking like baked potato thick?
Definitely not fine dining thin. I would say about a fifth of an inch, sort of. Sixth of an inch. Yeah.
Cool.
Not too thin. Yeah. Even a little thinner than that. Something like that. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. Got it.
Again, because once you slice it too thin, the water evaporates too quickly. You're not going to get your layers.
Right. Cool.
Yeah. So, luckily, slicing it too thin is a little counterintuitive.
Right.
And so you layer it, and then the technique of rolling scallion pancakes is you take the bottom sheet, not the bottom sheet, not the layer at the bottom, but the bottommost part of the dough.
Right, like the bottom edge.
Yes, you pull it out a little bit, and then you stretch it, and you tuck it on top of the layer. So it's like a pull and tuck, pull and tuck, pull and tuck.
Is it a fold or a roll?
It really is the same thing, isn't it?
Well, I'm thinking about like rolling like a joint, kind of, you know what I mean? Where it's like you're creating like a tubular kind of.
So here's the thing. When your dough is hydrated like the 60% hydration dough is, it's hard for you to roll. Because it's heavier. The dough is heavier, so it's almost like automatically going to be flat. The moment you, quote unquote, roll that up, it's going to flatten. And so you roll it up until you get 1-2, like a snake of the scallion dough thing. And then what you do is make it into a snail by kind of like this is a roll. You roll it onto itself, and then at the very end, you'll have the tail of it, and then you tuck that tail underneath the entire roll of snail.
And just to give people an image, the thing that came to mind for me was like cinnamon roll. Like you're creating like a spiral. Is that right? Like you're twisting it around itself, like you were spooling up like a thing of yarn or something like that.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then what you want to do is press it down gently so that the tail is incorporated with the whole entire dough. It becomes homogeneous. Then comes the most important part. People hate it, but you gotta let that motherfucker rest overnight.
Oh, that's crazy.
That is non-negotiable.
Wow, non-negotiable.
Absolutely non-negotiable.
Dear God.
there is no, this is not a dinner parties thing. It's not like a friends make it together thing. It's you have to let it rest overnight so then the gluten's relaxed and the dough becomes one. So when you roll it out, you're not going to have like bits falling apart. You're not going to have dough separation, and your dough is going to be way more relaxed and have a way better texture. It's going to brown more evenly. Every single thing about your scallion pancake will be much better, will be light years better when you begin resting it overnight. So if you do a 2-3 hour, it's just simply not enough.
Wow. So if someone was like, I'm going to make, I got 4 hours, I'm going to make scallion pancakes, your advice would be like, don't do it.
Yeah, don't even bother.
Wow.
Yeah, unless you want to eat it tomorrow.
That's amazing. Okay, so talk to me about resting. Like, are you on like a sheet tray with plastic wrap, or like a plate with like, or like a Tupperware?
Whatever your equipment allows.
But covered, your kitchen right? Allows. In the fridge?
In the fridge.
Right, in the fridge, right?
Overnight.
Wow. Now
it's sort of like a pizza dough.
Right.
If you think about it, right?
Right.
A good pizza dough needs to ferment for like at least one night, sometimes 2 to 3 nights.
Totally. But there's not really, maybe because there's no yeast, you're not really like, or there's a little sourdough starter, but with pizza dough, I'm familiar with like punching it down and stuff, but maybe you don't really need, this sounds like it's more about it relaxing and melding.
And then if you think about it, because you created all these layers, right? It needs to relax into each other. If you're resting it 2 to 3 hours, it doesn't have time to sort of become, it's not had the time to become one yet. All the gluten's still very separated, right? And you think about it, right? You have your dough that has the fat, that has the flour, that has the water. Everything needs time to mingle and become one. And like I have all these recipes online that tells you to rest it for an hour. I call bullshit.
Wow. That's amazing. I didn't know that. I mean, in some way, like my first reaction is like, dear God. But I think that in some ways it's nice, right? Like if you do want to have a dinner party, there's something nice about like, I'm going to prep these the day in advance. And then when people come over, I'm going to roll them out and fry them. And it's going to be super chill rather than having all your flour everywhere.
And people will be extraordinarily impressed. Like, honestly, the resting overnight, I just learned about 2-3 years ago, right? I was doing like 6 hours. I was doing 3 hours. And it was never as good. Yeah, you can sear your scallion pancakes with a lot of oil and only rest them for 3 hours, and it's not going to be nearly as good as resting overnight with a tiny bit of oil.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's really good to know. I love that. You wake up in the morning and you have your coffee, your scallion pancakes have rested overnight, and it's time to cook them. Like, what happens next?
Yeah. My preference is actually thicker, which is, it's not unpopular, but unconventional.
Okay.
At least in the States. So I take the dough ball and
which at this point is maybe like 1.5 inches thick or something like that, or what are you thinking?
Inch and a half. Cool. But it's very relaxed. It's super relaxed. It's like it's almost like mud. Like wet mud. Like loose wet mud.
Wow.
Not a very appetizing way to describe food, but
no, it's good to know.
What I do is I take a bowl of roasted sesame seeds, I dab one side into it, and then I take a roll. Honestly, at this point, you don't really need a rolling pin. It's so relaxed, and especially because we're going for a thicker one, you just kind of press it down with your palm to the desired thickness. I like it like 1/2 inch thick, and then you take. I use a stainless steel skillet. You can use a cast iron. You can use a nonstick, but I don't know. I'm not a big nonstick guy.
So how big would this end up if it was at 1/2 inch?
Well, it's like 7-ish inches. Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Okay. And one side has sesame seeds on it.
Just one side, yeah. Because once you do 2 sides, then you're losing the texture of the crust. Yeah. Sesame seeds adds flavor, and it adds sort of like a presentability, and it adds like a little burst of nuttiness. But you also still want that texture of the dough, right? The crust of the dough you worked really hard on.
Yeah.
I add a little bit of oil, not too much. again, there's so much lard inside of the dough that you don't really need much oil. If you're using a well-seasoned cast iron, I would challenge you to just even not add oil.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, start at medium heat. When the pan gets like kind of hot, but not ripping hot, you put your scallion pancakes in.
Does it matter sesame down or sesame up? Does it matter?
Sesame down.
Sesame down. Cool.
Yeah. Well, so what's going to happen is water is going to begin to cook inside the dough, inside the scallion, and inside the lard. Once it starts smoking like a chimney, like you're going to have one point of the pancake start like smoking a lot of steam, right? And you're going to see your scallion pancake inflate because of all the evaporation of the steam. It's pushing all the layers up. Then you flip it, and then you let the same thing kind of happen and go on, and then you flip it. Once you have a nice color on the bottom, you take it out. You do want to let it rest a little bit, just so the crust can settle.
Wait, were you flipping more than once? You sesame down, then you flipped it, and it inflates, flip it, and like kind of inflates again.
Yeah.
Continually flipping it to get different.
Yeah. Yeah, just so, because it's thicker, so you want to make sure that, you're not overcooking the crust while undercooking the center. But at a medium heat, generally, once you see the bottom has a nice crust, you're ready. Yeah. And if it's looking a little bit like burnt or whatever, not burnt, but like it's not getting a good crust enough, then you can either push it down with like a burger spatula, burger press, or some sort of weight.
Idea.
Yeah. That's what we do at the restaurant. We put a burger press on it, and then we don't even sell burgers. We just bought it for the scallion pancakes. But you want to be careful with that because that would prohibit a little bit, not too much, but it'll prohibit your layers from forming.
Right.
Because you're sort of forcing it together instead of allowing it sort of a free flow of layers.
So just to clarify, you're flipping it more than just once. You're like paying attention to it. If it seems like the side that's on the pan is getting too crispy, you'll flip it back to the sesame. And then, if it feels like it's getting an uneven browning, you'll put like a light press on it, but maybe not too early in the process so it doesn't like inhibit the layer growth.
Yeah, and if you think like your crust is not getting the color that you want, you can add a little bit of oil to help it, but you shouldn't need too much.
And your doneness cues are kind of like once the crust is formed at that temperature with the flipping, likely the inside is going to be done.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Because there's so much, you're essentially steaming the inside.
Right.
And steam is crazy hot. And then with each layer, you're creating more steam, so it's really just cooking itself. And you rest it for about like 3 to 5 minutes, just so the crust can form, and then you cut into that bad boy, and then just admire the cross section.
Wow, what does it look like?
Yeah, it's gonna have like, depending on how you did it, but sometimes I get like a circular snail shape. Sometimes I get the really pretty even one layer by one layer. It really depends because sometimes, because we store them in plastic bags, like tiny sandwich bags. And then so sometimes we dump it out. It's not exactly the orientation where we put it in. And then we press it nonetheless, and it's like it's always got a different shape, which is cool.
Oh, right.
But if you're doing it at home, it should have a pretty even layer by layer by layer.
Cool. And then you mentioned this a little bit, but like, how would you be eating it? Like, let's say you were serving it for a dinner party. Would you make a sauce to dip it in? Would you eat it like just out of hands? Would you use it as like an accompaniment to a certain type of like other item that you were making?
This recipe, I just eat it by itself. Like truly. You can do sort of like a vinegar dipping sauce, vinegar, garlic, something like that, just to hydrate it as it sits. But if it's fresh and you didn't make a lot, you don't need a sauce. But if it's a dinner party and it's been sitting out a little bit, people are a little bit shy, a little timid to go all in. You have a little vinegar dipping sauce, a little Chinese black vinegar, preferably well-aged, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of chili oil, and fresh cut garlic. That's going to go perfectly with this scallion pancake.
God, I just made it last night, but I'm feeling like I want to make it again. It sounds so like enticing. What do you think are like common mistakes or like the hardest part of the process? I mean, it seems like a big one is resting, but like, what are other points where you think a lot of people probably like fuck it up? basically.
Hydration level.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one.
Mm.
And the cooking itself, I think, if you're on a crazy high heat, you're not going to be able to cook it as evenly as you'd want it to be cooked. And so, honestly, every step of the scallion pancake is very simple, right? But it's just understanding the incredible sort of versatility of the ingredients, because there are only 5 ingredients. So, like, understanding the fundamentals of each ingredient is so key in making a good scallion pancake.
Yeah, and it seems like a big principle really is like understanding that in some sense you're laminating and you're looking for steam. Like, yeah. And that's a big part of it. And I think like I wasn't thinking about that. But it's a good thing to keep in mind, because you're probably like, once you start to form these layers, you probably want to like be pretty tender with it, and you don't want to like smush them back together. I don't know. That's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah, but for an average home cook, honestly, at home, 60% hydration, rest the shit out of it. That is all you need.
That's amazing.
That is all you're gonna surprise, you're gonna please, it's gonna be a home run for you.
Well, there you have it. That's everything you need to know for now about scallion pancakes. You've been listening to Taste. Taste is made by me, Cody Reiss, with art by Ben Blood Sweaty and music by Justin Kohlberg of Moonrun. If you enjoyed this episode, consider giving us a follow, leaving us a review, setting reminders for episode releases. You can find us on Instagram at Taste Podcast or Cody at Cody Reiss. And if you like this podcast, you'll probably also like my food and travel rating, which you can find on my Substack, which also is called To Taste. Thank you so much to Eric Z, and special thanks to Jacob Alcinati for cooking with me. We'll see you all in a couple weeks. Bye-bye.